What if I told you that some of Africa's deepest wounds were not caused by war, but by ideas? That the violence, division, and distrust we see in Africa today, between ethnic groups, religions, and regions, were carefully planted, not by our ancestors, but by outsiders. They didn't need to destroy Africa with guns. They simply divided us, and they ruled. Divide and rule, the colonial strategy. In this video, we uncover one of the most powerful tools of European colonialism, divide and rule, a strategy designed to break unity, create chaos, and ensure control, long after the colonizers left. But how did it work? Why was it so effective? And what scars has it left on modern Africa? Let's go back to where it all began. What is divide and rule? Divide and rule, also known as divide et impera, is a strategy as old as empire itself, used by the Romans, perfected by the British. The idea is simple. People who are divided are easier to control. If you can prevent your enemies from uniting, you'll never have to face their full strength. Colonial powers brought this philosophy to Africa, but instead of conquering with swords, they conquered with policies, propaganda, and manipulation. They didn't just divide land, they divided people. Dividing by tribe and ethnicity. Before colonization, African identities were complex and fluid. People belonged to clans, kingdoms, and communities. But these identities were flexible. Colonizers changed that. They mapped out tribes and ethnic groups, even where no clear lines existed. In Nigeria, the British emphasized divisions between the House of Fulani, Yoruba, and Igbo. They gave political power to some and ignored or suppressed others. The goal was simple: create competition, not cooperation. Rwanda, a deadly example. One of the most tragic examples comes from Rwanda. Under Belgian rule, the colonial government turned social classes into ethnic identities. The Tutsi minority was favored, given access to schools, leadership, and church positions. The Hutu majority was excluded. And this division was made official through identity cards, labeling every Rwandan as either Tutsi or Hutu. This artificial division, created by colonizers, laid the foundation for decades of resentment, and ultimately the 1994 genocide that claimed over 800,000 lives. Divide through leadership. The rise of warrant chiefs. Colonial governments destroyed traditional African leadership structures. They replaced them with warrant chiefs, hand-picked men who were loyal to the colonizers, not to their people. In many cases, these chiefs ruled over groups they didn't belong to. This created mistrust, oppression, and local conflicts, which the colonizers used as a justification to step in and stabilize. Divide by economic access. Colonizers also created economic divisions, gave jobs, education, and trade licenses to groups seen as loyal, denied opportunities to others. In Kenya, for example, white settlers took the best land, and certain ethnic groups were used for cheap labor, while others were excluded. This not only created inequality, it created resentment between Africans. African soldiers fighting each other. Another powerful tactic, using African soldiers to suppress other Africans. The British recruited troops from one region to crush resistance in another. For example, Nigerian soldiers were used in Ghana, Sudanese troops were used in Uganda. This way, the colonizers avoided fighting, and Africans were pitted against each other, deepening mistrust. African soldiers fighting each other. Another powerful tactic, using African soldiers to suppress other Africans. The British recruited troops from one region to crush resistance in another. For example, Nigerian soldiers were used in Ghana, Sudanese troops were used in Uganda. This way, the colonizers avoided fighting, and Africans were pitted against each other, deepening mistrust. Divide and rule in the modern age. Even today, elements of this strategy continue. Politicians use ethnic favoritism to win elections. Foreign companies exploit divided governments to extract resources. International lenders impose conditions that benefit elites, not the people. Divide and rule may have changed form, but its logic still shapes Africa's future. Can Africa overcome this legacy? Yes, but it won't be easy. Healing begins with truth, education, reclaiming history, teaching that our tribes, our languages, our cultures are not reasons for division, but sources of strength. It also means building systems where no group is left behind, and where leaders are chosen by vision, not by bloodline. Unity is possible, not by erasing our differences, but by understanding that we are stronger together. The colonizers may be gone, but the ideas they left behind, tribalism, favoritism, suspicion, still haunt us. They divided us to rule us, but now we must unite to free ourselves, not just politically, but mentally, socially, spiritually. Because the real revolution is not just in the streets, it's in the mind. So how do we undo centuries of division? Teaching true African history, not colonial lies. Embracing our differences as strengths, not threats. Healing the wounds caused by inequality and violence. Building a future where borders don't divide us, they connect us. It starts with recognizing the strategy and refusing to fall for it again. Africa must rise together. The colonizers didn't just take our land. They took our unity. They left behind borders, broken identities, and bitterness. But we don't have to stay divided, because Africa's strength has always been in its people, in its culture, its resilience, and its wisdom. If we are to rise, we must rise together, not as tribes, not as enemies, but as one continent, one people, one future. Until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.